Hello, everyone. My name is Jason Dablow, a cloud security advisor with Trend Micro. We're a security manufacturer that creates a number of security solutions, particularly around cloud security, which I'll be talking about today, but also network and endpoint as well. And we're also here sponsored by Aurora as well, which does professional services and security risk assessments for your business as well. We have a virtual booth as part of this cybersecurity summit for Los Angeles chapter. So please come by after this talk and be happy to answer any questions that you might have. So I'll be talking about today the ability to start your cloud migration journey and really talking about the principles, really focusing in on how to be successful with this migration journey. I have the wonderful opportunity to talk with a number of very large enterprises all over the United States and really talking about digital transformations and also things like how to go through a successful cloud migration as well. So I'll be sharing some of the tips that I generally share and things that I've learned over the years as well when it comes to really securing hybrid cloud environments. So first and foremost, when you're talking about cloud migration, it all starts with, the why. Why would someone go through a cloud migration in the first place? Ultimately, it starts with maybe the technology benefits. You have the scalability. You can simplify maintenance. It's very easy to adapt this type of technology in terms of creating real agile workloads or really expanding on your existing data center strategy with brand new equipment or new things that you can actually pay like per minute within a cloud environment. You might also have a financial need in terms of a cloud migration, in terms of shifting your capital expenditures to an operational type budget, where, as I just mentioned, you can pay for things as a per second or millisecond or minute or hour, and really just pay for things as you need them, as opposed to making an investment on, say, different technologies or different capital, and really making sure that you have that ability to really shift budget around if needed as well. So certainly I see a number of customers using, their financial, that pushing into the operational expenditures as one of the main drivers of going into a cloud migration as well. You also have maybe a lease expiration as part of a data center exit or other things that might help drive that exit from data center technologies, like, again, the adopting newer components that you're not making a big upfront investment cost on as well. And then finally, the ease of using a migration like a lift and shift strategy, where you're taking a workload that was traditionally on-premise, maybe a virtual machine, and you're just shifting it up into the cloud now, taking advantage of maybe some more resources that you have up there, or simply, again, taking advantage of some of these other things here that you see on the Y as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this lift and shift approach because it is one of I'll say the earliest or the most often used when it comes to a first step or a little first baby step when it comes to a cloud migration specifically. So why is a lift and shift really, in terms of getting you on that path to victory? So you really have no application changes. So the application is going to run exactly the same as it would on-premise. You're just kind of shifting that architecture into a cloud environment. You have little application architecture changes, so very easy to stand up a brand new instance and say AWS and cover it with a security group or a firewall that you would have on-premise and making sure that the correct communication is happening as well. And really there's no other changes to that except, once you build out that first image and really making sure your application, again, with very little changes is running, you're up and running. You really have that chance for an easy successes, with the little that you have to do when it comes to application changes, that is. You have also the wide compatibility as well as the ease of performance upgrades as well. So, clicking a few buttons and you can increase the memory, which while in a virtual environment on-premise is very easy, but if you're having a physical machine, it's not that easy to, say, add more resources to a particular workload. Also, the compatibility is exactly the same. It's going to run on the same, say, Windows platform or Linux platform that you have on-premise. and that's just going to take advantage of the new resources that you're deploying within a cloud environment. It's also easy with low upfront effort. It buys you time to implement phase 2 as well, which I'll talk about in just a couple minutes. And really, because it's so easy and because it's gives you those early wins in terms of the cloud migration, this is really why we see lift and shift as kind of that first practice when it comes to starting that cloud migration journey. But there is some problems or some failures that can happen when you're introducing this type of lift and shift strategy as well. And ultimately, on the last slide, you have this, plan for phase 2. You're going through a migration journey. Your teams are now learning these new services, this new cloud architecture, all of this learning capabilities that has to be done for phase 2. Ultimately, by say taking those easy wins and continue doing what you're doing in say a normal environment, perhaps you won't use that time to have your team level up when it comes to learning those new technologies or implementing them in a best practice manner. It's also not a stable place to build for the future. So you might be replicating poor practices and now just extending your teams in terms of having some stuff on premise, some stuff in a cloud, but maybe again, not that knowledge to be able to support both in a way that makes sense for two very different types of environments. You might have, a lack of knowledge increase in terms of these teams as they're, again, deploying new resources. They have to learn these new services that are being used. And you might have compliance, governance or operational oversight, which might not be completely thought out and when you're going through this lift and shift as well. Since you're now extending into different architectures, you also have to making sure that you have that same umbrella of compliance governance and making sure that the risk associated with each of these two different architectures is thought about as well. And then you also might be implementing, say, legacy security controls that you've been using on premise for many, many years. These might not be as adequate when it comes to the ever evolving or the agility of a cloud environment to really keep up with machines coming up or going down in a very scalable manner. You might have, say, some problems associated with legacy security controls as you're trying to reuse them from a traditional on-premise environment and really kind of square peg round hole, if you will, in terms of making those tools work within a cloud environment. So as part of the cloud migration, what we see is that by 2021, 75% to mid-large organizations will have already adopted a multi-cloud or hybrid IT strategy. So they'll have both a data center as well as cloud workloads deployed within these multiple different types of environments. So this was in Gartner's paper from last year, 5 approaches to cloud applications integration. And you have these IT and cloud ops teams, which are now really focusing in on hybrid multi-cloud environments, still trying to maintain on-premise environments. You have security processes that when you have the data center right in front of you, when you have that hardware that you can touch and manipulate, makes it much easy to, say, implement a security control, particularly for that physical data. But as that shifts in terms of a cloud team and making sure that a cloud provider is providing this as well, your security processes also have to evolve with this architecture. You also have things like Windows relevance becoming less and less relevant when it comes to cloud workloads. We're seeing more and more cloud workloads using and adopting Linux in terms of those applications because it can be a bit more performant when it comes to those applications running on it as well. And then finally, that central visibility. This is a struggle for all of our teams when it comes to that visibility. If you're just managing a data center, but then now taking, again, a multi-cloud approach, and how do we get visibility across all of those things as well? Certainly another problem statement when it comes to IT and cloud ops teams as they're going through cloud migrations. So here's really where you come in with a best practices for security. So AWS has what they call a well-architected framework. This well-architected framework is 5 different pillars in terms of best practice configuration when it comes to what they're recommending for their millions of customers that they have within AWS. So they have things like cost optimization or performance and reliability, really making sure that the configurations that you're making or you're building within a cloud environment is really mapped out very well against, again, the best practices when it comes to really how you should be building in a cloud environment. This is where the security pillar comes into play here as well when it comes to implementing security for your cloud deployment. And what that looks like is subsections of the security pillar of the well-architected framework is really broken down into these sections here that you see. So something like identity and access management. You want to make sure that you have a least privilege design. So your users or the users that are within a system are only allocated access for what they're actually doing within the environment. Something like a detective control. So you're really focusing in on, say, your intrusion detective systems or your IPS, your protection against, say, network-based threats. Detecting things like making sure that your AWS accounts are configured correctly, again, against this well-architected framework. And really leading into, say, infrastructure protection, making sure that the threats are free on your EC2 instances or your Azure VMs. Things that your infrastructure itself is being protected from different types of network or other types of threats as well. And then finally, you have data protection and incident response. So the data protection piece is really focusing in on the data that you have in the cloud and making sure that that data is sitting somewhere encrypted, whether it's at rest or in movement, and really protecting it from data exfiltration or other types of threats there as well. And finally, incident response. So if there is something that's determined to be found that is causing problems within a particular environment, that you're making a response, whether that's automated in fashion or having your security operations center or your teams there go through your incident response practice and making sure that, again, you're following that process to really overcome the threat actors that might be trying to target your particular systems. So these kind of 5 best practices when it comes to security are really, again, a focus of that well-architected framework and really making sure that you are implementing the security best practices when it comes to your environment as well. So here at Trend Micro, I mentioned at the beginning, we're really focused on cloud security, and we offer a security service platform specifically focused for cloud builders. And I mentioned those kind of the 5 kind of subsections when it comes to the security pillar as it relates to the well-architected framework. Really focus in on really as many as we can those protection strategies with the Cloud One security service platform, as I mentioned. So of course we have security capabilities to help protect things that you're building in an environment. So on that left-hand side here, you can see for a cloud native application delivery, have things like if you're building in containers or serverless or taking cloud workloads and really focusing in using something like container security or application security or even file storage security, which focuses in on the storage, something like your S3 buckets within an AWS account. But you also have things like your cloud operational excellence, and this is really focused on that kind of centralized visibility as it relates to assurance or governance, and really the compliance of your cloud environment, again, as it relates to those operational efficiencies that you're trying to come up with within your environment as well. Really the focus of this talk is around that cloud migration at the bottom, as I mentioned, that lift and shift strategy, one of the easiest ways to gain those wins within a cloud migration, and also one of the easier ways to actually implement security in terms of that lift and shift. And I'll talk about a few of the solutions here as well. So first and foremost, the workload security. So this is our agent-based technology that's focused specifically on the lift and shift. So the infrastructure as a service that you're moving into a cloud environment, really focused in on not just anti-malware, although the Trend Micro name is a bit synonymous with that, being in business for over 30 years, really focusing in on that, but also taking other security controls like our vulnerability detection or vulnerability shielding. That's our IDS IPS within that agent-based technology as well. So we can actually look at the traffic before it affects the operating systems or applications, and making sure that they're free from any of those threats that might be attacking those things. But also using security controls for the host, like integrity monitoring or application control, which locks down the system and makes it only the available applications, or the ones that you want running in your server environment, are the ones that are allowed to run. And then finally, focusing in on those compliance mandates that you might have within these environments, and giving you that broad platform and environment support. So whether you're deploying in a data center or in a cloud environment, making sure that all of those legacy operating systems, like say Red Hat 4 or Windows 2000, are still supported and protected using all of this great agent-based technology as well. And you can't forget that because we're working in an agile type environment, that we need to making sure that we have an automated fashion for deployment, how we can get visibility into our different security or operational teams through APIs, and really making sure that we can reuse those existing investments that you've made within, say, your integration tooling or orchestration deployment tools. And so really making sure, again, that you have this kind of very broad range when it comes to security, as well as taking advantage of the platforms, architectures, or orchestration tooling that you've already made investments in as well. This also leads me to our network security solution. So this is perfect for integrating into really cloud provider specific network technologies like AWS Transit Gateway or VPC ingress routing or the Azure VM network environment, that allows you to say, based on gateway traffic that's already being configured within your cloud space, easily introducing a technology like network security that allows you to do intrusion prevention very seamless through both ingress and egress routing without having to manage things like routing tables or deployment strategies. All of that is done by the network provider themselves with, say, transit gateway technologies, without having you to assign IP addresses or scale up or down your network security appliances. It's all handled automatically within that network architecture as well. And finally, when you're talking about building as it relates to a cloud migration, what does that look like when you're trying to making sure that what you're building is also aligned with the best practices when it comes to cloud configurations, like the AWS well-architected framework? So the Cloud One conformity is really built to really give your teams that blueprint of what you're building within your environment, and continuously checking to making sure that you have the best practices and compliance standards in place for what you're building in the cloud, and continuously checking that and giving you that that stamp of approval that, yes, I brought up a new application, some new workloads, or the next phase of my lift and shift strategy. And those are all well aligned with both what my cloud architect is doing in terms of building a best practice blueprint for my cloud deployment, but also what my compliance and operation teams need in terms of that centralized visibility, and say, how am I doing against something like the CIS benchmark or the PCI framework, or if you're in, say, healthcare, the HIPAA compliance framework, mapping out that compliance framework and showing you exactly what you've built in your cloud environment, and giving you those step-by-step checks in terms of, hey, we could do a little better when it comes to our HIPAA compliance or our NIST compliance. We can make some adjustments in these areas in terms of, this is where we can make some changes to actually increase our compliance mandates, or make it easier for us to pass audits, or even show that our internal audit teams that, hey, we're taking security very seriously when it comes to what we're building in a cloud, and ultimately give you that public visibility of all of the information that you're building and ways that you can audit your own account, and give you insights into how to actually fix that within the tool as well. So you have a compliance status here across the bottom. This is a screenshot directly from the console, which goes in and shows you how well you're compliant across, again, those 5 pillars of the well-architected framework, and really showing you where you can be better, where you can make adjustments in terms of those configurations, and ultimately through whatever strategy you're choosing and whatever phase of cloud migration you're in, you have that ability to really give that visibility into your teams and the recommendations and remediations required to actually increase all of those pillars as well. So all of these solutions is, again, part of our Cloud One security service platform focused on securing what cloud builders are building in different cloud and multi-cloud environments. We aim to be very flexible, very automated, and all-in-one. So you can see all of this information, correlate all of your security, again, through that singular console, while really focusing in on the priorities that exist within your organization as well. So whether you're first starting with a cloud migration or going through a cloud native application delivery in terms of a phase 2 or phase 3, or setting up your own center of cloud excellence and maintaining that visibility and compliance against everything that you're building, we aim to make cloud security simplified in this particular method. So what's next? We have a Q&A at the Trend Micro and Aurora booth. I'll be there all afternoon, so hopefully you can come in if you had any questions about this particular presentation. We have our Cloud One overview that's available as the trendmicro.com/cloud1. You also can sign up for a free trial and start protecting your own workloads, your own cloud environments using any of the technologies that I talked about today. That's available at cloud1.trendmicro.com. Super easy to set up in just a couple minutes. So once you kind of sign up for your account, 2 minutes later, you're all set to start using any of the tools, again, that we talked about today. So again, please visit the Aurora and Trend Micro booth that we have over in the virtual booth session. Happy to sponsor the LA Cybersecurity Summit, and so glad to be a part of this, this great session. And again, also, if you would like to add me on LinkedIn, I'm always sharing lots of great content. And I'm really happy to hear on all of the other types of speakers, lots of great content being presented all day today. So hope to see you in some of the other sessions. And again, stop by the virtual booth. Happy to see you there and looking forward to it. Any questions, please don't hesitate to stop by. And thank you so much for joining my session today. Take care, everyone. Have a great one.